All right, today we're putting on our detective hats for a case that spans billions of years, the story of life on Earth. Now, our clues aren't going to be fingerprints or secret notes. Nope, they're fossils, a story that's literally written into the rock of our planet. Let's get started with our first really weird piece of evidence. So, our whole investigation kicks off with a real head scratcher. If you look at the skeleton of a modern whale, you'll find a pelvic bone. But think about it, whales don't have legs, right? So, what on earth are they doing with bones for them? To solve this little puzzle, we first have to understand the nature of our evidence. You see, that whale bone is a very specific type of clue. It's called a fossil. And these remnants of the distant past, they're the core evidence we're going to use to build our case and piece together the entire history of life. Okay, so what is a fossil exactly? Well, simply put, it's any preserved evidence of something that was once alive. But here's the thing, becoming a fossil is like winning the lottery. It's incredibly rare. Because when most things die, all the soft parts, skin, muscles, they decay really quickly. It's usually just the hard parts like bones, shells, and teeth that have any shot at lasting long enough to be preserved. And these clues, they come in a bunch of different forms, and each one tells a slightly different part of the story. You've got mineralization, where minerals and water seep in and preserve incredible internal details, like in petrified wood. Carbonization leaves behind this delicate little carbon film, almost like a shadow of a fern frond. Molds and casts give us a 3D impression of an organism's shape. Then there are trace fossils, which I think are super cool. Things like dinosaur footprints, which tell us about behavior, not just biology. And in the rarest of cases, you get the jackpot, original material, like an insect trapped in amber, perfectly preserved. Each type is a vital piece of the puzzle. So, we have our clues, but any good detective knows that's not enough. You need a timeline. Finding a fossil is one thing, but how in the world do we know how old it is? How do we know where it fits in the story? How do we organize this massive case file? Well, the most basic principle is actually beautifully simple. Just think of rock layers like a stack of magazines. Unless someone's come along and knocked the pile over, the ones on the bottom were put there first, so they're the oldest. The ones on top are the newest. It's the same idea with rocks. So the deeper you dig, the farther back in time you go. Now, with that basic principle in mind, scientists use two main forensic techniques. First, there's relative age dating. This just uses those rock layers to figure out the sequence of events. It tells us that fossil A is older than fossil B. But for more precision, we need absolute age dating. This is the really powerful stuff. It uses the predictable decay of radioactive elements in rocks, kind of like a natural clock, to figure out a rock's age in actual years. It's the difference between saying this happened before that and saying this happened 150 million years ago. So, with our clues in hand and our dating methods ready, we can finally do the cool part. We can zoom out, way out. We can start to assemble all of this evidence into one single massive story. It's like we're opening up the planet's own diary. This huge collection of millions of clues is what scientists call the fossil record. It's the grand total of every fossil we've ever found, all over the world. It's this vast, sprawling story that shows us the entire history of life. How it started, how it exploded into incredible diversity, how it changed, and yes, how it sometimes came to a very dramatic end. Now, a story this long needs chapters, right? To make sense of it all, scientists organize it into the geologic timescale. It starts way back in Precambrian time with the very first microscopic life. Then it moves into the Paleozoic era with an explosion of life in the oceans. After that comes the Mesozoic era, the age of dinosaurs. And finally, that brings us to our own time, the Cenozoic era, the age of mammals. Each one of those boundaries is marked by huge changes in the kinds of fossils we find. And just how far back does this diary go? The oldest evidence of life we found in rocks is a staggering 3.7 billion years old. That's billion, with a B. It's a timescale that's almost impossible to really wrap your head around. But the clues, they're right there, locked in stone. But this story isn't just about beginnings and slow, steady change. As paleontologists kept reading the rock layers, they started noticing something dramatic and kind of terrifying. They'd see entire communities of animals that were everywhere in one layer, and then in the very next layer up, they were just gone, vanished. And what all this evidence reveals is just staggering. It shows us that life on this planet has been pushed to the very brink of annihilation at least 5 times, 5 major mass extinction events. The scale of these events is just hard to comprehend. I mean, look at this chart. It shows the diversity of life over the last 500 million years or so. Each one of those 5 massive dips you see, that's a global catastrophe. It's a moment when a huge percentage of all species on Earth vanished forever, totally reshaping the story of life and, in a way, creating new opportunities for whatever managed to survive. So what could possibly cause that much devastation? Well, the evidence points to massive environmental changes. Some of them were sudden and incredibly violent, like a giant meteorite impact or volcanic eruptions that literally choked the planet. Others were more of a slow burn, gradual but relentless changes, like continents moving, sea levels rising and falling, or long-term shifts in the climate. So you see, fossils are so much more than just old bones. They are the words, the sentences, and the chapters in the epic saga of our planet. They tell a story that's not just about death, but also about incredible resilience, constant change, astonishing diversity, and new beginnings rising up from the ashes. They show us exactly how a strange leftover bone in a whale connects us to an ancient past, to a time when its ancestors actually walked on land. And this brings us to one final, really crucial thought. For billions of years, the rocks had been keeping a diary. We've read the past chapters, and we've seen the forces that can end an entire era. But that diary, it's still being written, right now. So the question is, when future geologists read the chapter that's being formed today, what will it say about us?